Liberalism. Liberalism, a political ideology rooted in individual liberty, equality, and limited government intervention, advocates for personal freedoms, civil rights, and free markets. It prioritizes the protection of human rights, including freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. Liberal democracies uphold the rule of law, pluralism, and constitutionalism. Economic liberalism promotes open markets and competition. Liberalism has influenced modern governance and policies worldwide, fostering democratic institutions and social progress. Fascism. Fascism, arising in the early 20th century, advocates for authoritarian rule, extreme nationalism, and totalitarian control. It prioritizes the state over individual rights, promoting a strong leader embodying national unity and glory. Fascist regimes suppress dissent, enforce strict social hierarchies, and often use violence to maintain power. Characterized by propaganda, militarism, and xenophobia, fascism seeks to create a centralized, homogeneous society, rejecting liberal democracy and promoting aggressive expansionism. Anarchy. Anarchy advocates for the absence of hierarchical authority and the establishment of voluntary, cooperative societies based on mutual aid and solidarity. Rejecting centralized governance, anarchy promotes individual autonomy, direct democracy, and decentralized decision-making. Critics argue it may lead to chaos and lawlessness, while proponents see it as a means to dismantle oppressive power structures and foster egalitarianism. Anarchist movements vary, encompassing schools such as collectivism, mutualism, and anarcho-communism, each proposing different paths toward a stateless society. Syndicalism. Syndicalism is a political ideology advocating for the organization of society through decentralized trade unions, or syndicates. These unions would not only represent workers, but also manage and control industries and services. Syndicalists aim to abolish the capitalist system and replace it with a system of workers' self-management. They believe in direct action, such as strikes and boycotts, to achieve their goals. Syndicalism emerged as a response to the perceived shortcomings of both capitalism and centralized socialism. Socialism advocates for collective ownership and control of the means of production, aiming for an equitable distribution of wealth and resources. It seeks to eliminate class distinctions, promote social welfare, and empower workers. Key principles include social justice, economic equality, and state intervention in the economy. Socialist ideologies vary, ranging from democratic socialism to more radical forms like Marxism. Socialist policies often include nationalization of industries, progressive taxation, and social welfare programs. Progressivism, a political ideology, advocates for social, political, and economic reforms to address inequalities and improve the well-being of society. It emphasizes government intervention to promote social justice, environmental sustainability, and individual rights. Progressives support policies such as universal health care, education reform, and environmental protection. Rooted in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, progressivism continues to evolve, influencing contemporary political movements and shaping policies aimed at advancing societal progress. Populism, a political ideology, champions the interests of ordinary people against a perceived elite or establishment. It often appeals to emotions, identity, and nationalism rather than rationality or policy expertise. Populist leaders typically promise to address the grievances of the masses and challenge existing political institutions. While it can mobilize support and promote accountability, populism may also fuel polarization, undermine democratic norms, and oversimplify complex issues. Separatism. Separatism is a political ideology advocating for the independence or secession of a particular group or region from a larger political entity. It is often driven by cultural, ethnic, linguistic, or religious differences, with the belief that a separate political entity would better serve the interests and identity of the marginalized group. Separatist movements vary in their goals, methods, and degrees of success, ranging from peaceful advocacy to armed struggle. Moderatism. Moderatism, a political ideology, advocates for balanced and pragmatic approaches to governance, steering clear of extremes. It promotes compromise, consensus building, and incremental reforms rather than radical changes or polarizing policies. Moderates prioritize stability, cooperation, and the common good over ideological purity. They seek to bridge divides and foster cooperation between different groups or factions within society. This ideology often finds application in democracies where diverse perspectives must be reconciled for effective governance. Communism. Communism advocates for a classless society where resources are collectively owned and distributed according to need. Founded by Marx and Engels, it critiques capitalism, advocating for the overthrow of the bourgeoisie by the proletariat. Key tenets include social equality, common ownership of the means of production, and the elimination of social hierarchies. While aiming for a utopian society, real-world implementations have faced criticism for authoritarianism and economic inefficiency. Libertarianism advocates for minimal government intervention in both the economic and social spheres, prioritizing individual freedom and autonomy. It opposes government regulation and control, favoring voluntary exchange and free markets. Libertarians emphasize personal responsibility and limited government involvement in personal choices, including issues such as drug legalization and marriage rights. This ideology values civil liberties, property rights, and free association, striving for a society where individuals have maximum freedom to pursue their own interests. Corporatism. Corporatism, a political ideology, advocates for organizing society into corporate groups representing various economic and social interests. These groups, including businesses, labor unions, and professional associations, collaborate with the state to manage and regulate the economy and society. Corporatism systems aim to balance competing interests, promote social cohesion, and achieve economic stability. However, critics argue that it can lead to the concentration of power among elites and hinder individual freedoms. Feminism. Feminism is a political ideology advocating for gender equality, challenging societal norms, and addressing systemic oppression based on gender. It aims to dismantle patriarchal structures, promote women's rights, and address issues such as wage gaps, reproductive rights, and gender-based violence. Feminism encompasses various perspectives, including liberal, radical, socialist, and intersectional feminism, each emphasizing different approaches to achieving gender justice. Its impact extends beyond politics, influencing social attitudes, policies, and cultural norms worldwide. Capitalism. Capitalism is an economic and political system centered on private ownership of property and the means of production. It promotes free markets, competition, and profit-driven exchange. In capitalism, prices, wages, and production are determined by supply and demand, with minimal government intervention. Supporters argue it fosters innovation, efficiency, and economic growth. Critics highlight issues of inequality, exploitation, and environmental degradation. Capitalism is the dominant economic system in much of the world, particularly in Western nations. Imperialism. Imperialism is a political ideology advocating for the extension of a nation's power and influence through territorial acquisition, colonization, and economic dominance over other territories and peoples. It often involves the exploitation of resources, labor, and markets for the benefit of the imperialist nation. Imperialism has historically led to conflicts, exploitation, and cultural assimilation, shaping global geopolitics and leaving lasting legacies of inequality and injustice.